If you've been looking for a game with an incredible cyberpunk aesthetic with amazing combat, exploration and environmental puzzles, then you shouldn't be playing Cyberpunk, it's such a broken game anyway. Or even Deus Ex and Mirror's Edge. No, hell no. In fact, my friends, you should be playing the fast-paced cyberpunk slasher, Ghostrunner. Ghostrunner is such an amazing experience to go through, especially on the first time. With such flow, Ghostrunner makes you feel like a true ninja, as your reflexes are heightened by the cybernetics that the player character Jack has in his arsenal. Now, spoiler territory for Ghostrunner, and of course, if you don't want to hear about the story, then just skip ahead. I'll put a timestamp up on the screen so you know where to go. Is everyone ready? Well, let's go. The player character, the Ghostrunner, is tasked with helping out the architect, the person who built the skyscraper that you will inevitably be slowly climbing up throughout the game. He tasks you with going up against the big bad, the Keymaster, but ultimately with some twists and turns, I was actually pleasantly surprised with the direction that the game inevitably took by the conclusion of the story. But you know, of course, you're here for the gameplay side of things, and no pun intended, but to see how it all plays out together. For starters, combat is some of the best that I've ever seen, as although you may find yourself dying quite a fair bit on your first playthrough, especially by the end of these 8 to 10 hours you'll be spending in Ghostrunner, you never stop learning and adapting to the changes you find in the world. For example, Ghostrunner often adds new enemy types into the game just to keep you on your toes and so you don't just get bored of the same one-bullet enemies that are at you all of the time. This variety is exactly what the game needed to keep the suspense and tension as you progress from level to level, especially with the inclusion of the variety of powers for you to choose from, such as a dash to take out all the enemies in front of you, telekinesis to hack an enemy to help them thin down the hordes, a force push kind of ability that allows you to push all the enemies away from you, and finally an ability that projects a massive elongated beam of energy to wipe out all the enemies that are spread out in a certain area. Some enemies even have shields which you need to sort of work your way behind, literally, to get to their weak points, and so utilizing the bullet time mechanic is actually really useful in those types of scenarios. And luckily, to keep the pace of the game feeling fast and exhilarating, all enemies but the bosses will go down in one strike, and so it's really fun to just slash and dash your way through each enemy. And yet, since the enemies go down in one hit, I've got some bad news for you. You do as well. And this isn't a bad thing, because this really accelerates and elevates the tension in combat and makes the player delve into a kind of risk-reward system where trying something new could either get them through the part of the level or it could get you killed. Now, gladly, Ghostrunner has the player instantly respawn upon death, meaning that you can just hop back into the action quickly and get back into the fight, perhaps learning something now that you didn't know that you now do, and this rings true with any encounter with new enemies. There is also a heavy amount of platforming in Ghostrunner, which is actually kind of quite refreshing, to be honest with you. It's not that often that we see an FPS game with great parkour, and a matter of fact, I can only really think of 2 game series. I can think Titanfall, as Titanfall 2 was just golden, and Dying Light is just an amazing game overall, with some incredible parkour mechanics, and I guess some degree maybe Portal, but they're just portals, that's not actually parkour, and I really hope that you guess what I'm going for here. All I'm saying is, it's got great parkour. Ghostrunner has good parkour, okay? Parkour is actually so varied in Ghostrunner, from sliding to grappling to sprinting to rail grinding to jumping, and even to some degree the bullet time mechanic is also a part of the parkour, as it is actually utilised in some environmental puzzles to hide hidden items such as sword customization, and also some useless collectibles which are technically a part of the story but otherwise have no other role in the game. But either way, it's really cool to see the parkour system being utilised in a creative way. I actually went back to the game after playing it to collect all of the collectibles, as I was going for the Platinum Trophy at the time, and it was quite cool to see some areas that I had otherwise missed, as before I was just swept up in the combat and never really took in the environment itself, which is kind of a shame. But after playing, I was really glad that I was able to actually take in the environment. The actual moment-to-moment parkour feels so smooth and responsive, especially in comparison to me trying out Call of Duty Cold War after, and it just felt sluggish and slow, and honestly it just really doesn't compare. Because grappling from crane to crane or wall running from storage container to storage container is just so fun, and it really does break up the main bulk of the game, which is of course the combat. But I really do think that the parkour is just such an important part of what makes Ghostrunner just such an amazing game. But going back to trophies, to be honest, the main pain with getting the platinum for Ghostrunner was just collecting all of the collectibles. Luckily, however, there is an upgrade which allows you to see all the hidden collectibles on your minimap. This feature was certainly handy and made the journey to the platinum more fun, and looking up a tutorial isn't exactly the most fun thing because you're breaking your immersion from the game, and B, searching for an hour and perhaps not finding anything in a specific level is not exactly ideal. This ability is certainly a must whether you want more swords to choose from, or also if you're going to get all of the trophies in Ghostrunner, so just a heads up for anyone who's considering playing the game. The aesthetic for the game's world is actually quite amazing if you think about it, and I get that technically you're just stuck in a big construction tower, but even so, the levels are beautifully designed and crafted to suit the player's mobility and to really cater to the fantasy of being an unstoppable ninja in a cyberpunk dystopian world. And if you think about it, each area where you engage in combat is almost like a mini arena, but one that is crafted in a way for you to use the environment to your advantage. From the get-go of any encounter, there is always a choice, multiple ways to handle a combat situation, but really, to be honest, it just boils down to, should I go left or should I go right? And realistically, I'm just putting it plain and simple, as that's really all it comes down to. And hey, if I go left and it doesn't work, perhaps I should go right instead, or stay left and use the knowledge from what I've learned in the first encounter and just try again. Because it's this try again and try again feature that makes the game kind of more replayable than you'd think it would, because it encourages you to think on your own and make your own calculated decisions in a combat scenario. The crazy thing is that the world is so intricately crafted for the player's mobility that it always just feels right and natural. You're not really questioning if you can run across a certain wall or if your hacking ability will work for that specific fan. Because as common with video game tropes, all of the walls and ledges have yellow on them to show where you can go, but honestly, Ghostrunner never really needed them, as if anything it just sort of adds to the 80s neon future setting, like something we've seen in the film Blade Runner, as a synth wave track continuously plays over the game at a very high tempo. But if anything, it actually holds you up to a certain pace, as you ultimately want to do something cool when the beat drops to any track, and it's quite wonderful. As you can tell, Cyberpunk such a funny joke. As you can tell, Ghostrunner's approach to combat has so much to it, as there are so many multiple different ways in any encounter to just try something different. Let's be honest here, I know that Ghostrunner has been out for quite a while now, but Ghostrunner is the Cyberpunk game that you should be playing, as not only did the devs deliver on the project that they promised, cough cough CD Projekt Red, but the game is also a really refreshing experience, especially for someone who has been stuck and am exhausted by open world games, which are too much of a thing right now. Just too much. And Ghostrunner isn't exactly a turn off your brain kind of game, but you will instantly get sucked into the world and everything that it has to behold, as the story is enjoyable and the voice acting is great. the combat is satisfying and clean, and the parkour, as mentioned previously, is one of the most responsive movement systems that I have seen in a long time. I'd really recommend this game to anyone who would pick it up, as the 8 to 10 hour playtime mark can be added to by the various challenge modes that you can play upon completing the game. But on a real note, if you see Ghostrunner on a sale, consider buying it. It's definitely worth it. And that's all my thoughts on Ghostrunner. If you like this video, then stick around and subscribe, like, and turn on the notification button so you don't miss another upload from me. So thank you and goodbye.